Dent, Shannon, Oregon, and part of Reynolds, but they've changed it to Dent.
Now,
and
have you got
Crawford.
all of Crawford?
All of Crawford and all of Dent.
Son, that's it.
That's
Wholly
what I have
contained
right
within
now,
them
yes.
too. Okay, good. All
And
right.
that's the same district back when Jason Smith was in, and then they changed it to the old one, and they just kind of changed it back.
You know, I thought when Jason had it, I thought there was a small part of Phelps County.
I think there was a part of
a little bit.
very little
Yeah,
to
okay.
get it the population to where it needed to be.
Yeah. Anyway, good to be here, Stan.
Well, glad to have you.
Yes, sir.
You've got things going on in your life, don't you?
It's things are hopping. Yeah, popping.
Popping
We was
more.
expecting maybe a baby, a new grandbaby here today or tomorrow, but I hear now they've put it off to possibly Monday or Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
So we'll
Not quite ready.
We'll see, but I've got my phone in my pocket just in case.
Just in case.
Got my
All right.
OB chains and calf jack in the truck if they need my help, so we're ready to go.
Well, very good. Very good. Glad that you make it in, and glad everything's still on schedule.
Oh
I
yeah,
like to
oh
say.
yeah.
And we're very
that's
glad
good.
to
Worked
have
out
you.
good. I told her I said I've got the radio program Friday morning, and then the Chiefs play at 3:30
Can't
Saturday.
have a baby. We got a radio
So,
program.
Girl, you got to get this. And she's, oh my God, Dad. You know how that goes. So anyway, it'll work out. Yeah, I've got a new grandbaby, little
On the
granddaughter
way.
on the way. Yep. So anyway, but
Very good.
A lot of things happening in Dent County and in the state of Missouri, right, Ron?
Oh,
yeah.
there's a lot going on right now. Just starting up.
Yeah.
Okay,
See
very
where it
good.
goes.
So basically, county's been working on budget,
Budget.
and then budget.
Budget. That's pretty well. That's pretty well it for January. A few other things going on
Sure,
though too, and then
sure.
and of course then the legislature. And I appreciate Ron you coming in and visit with us. I know the legislature got started January 4th or 5th or something
4th.
like that, and so things are happening there, committee appointments, and of course the governor's state of the state address, and all the little formalities and things to get out of the way. But I'd just let Ron go ahead and kind of
fine.
update us information he might have that people need to know.
Well, like Darrell said, it did start on January 4th. Kind of slow start, and kind of usually is a slow start. We got a new speaker, new leader of the House leadership, and getting all that going.
Heard great things about Representative. How's it pronounced?
Dean Plocker.
Dean Plocker. And where's he from?
He's from around St. Charles area,
Okay.
up in the edges there, and our new floor leaders from around Kansas City, and that's John Patterson.
Uh-huh.
I think they're going to work well together, and I think they're going to listen to our voice, and give us a little bit more say-so in things from in the past. I know it started out with a lot of people worried about the new rules changes and whatnot like that, and that was a lot of controversy in that. And there wasn't a lot of things going on, but the one thing I want to give a shout out to our speaker about is at least he was out in the open about the rule changes that were going to be discussed.
Right.
In the past, they just kept it under the wraps, and that we voted on them, and it wasn't said. At least representative or the speaker allowed the body to talk about it, put it out for public debate, and put it out there for discussion, and didn't do it behind closed doors. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of people out there upset about some of the rules, but they need to look at least he let people discuss it and talk about it.
Yeah, and there was some upset and a lot of hype about pretty darn little as far as I've
It
seen.
was
We really
very
got
little. I
into
mean,
Kinda
it's some
silly.
changes, and some of the changes that they say that gives more power to the speaker really gives us representatives more power, because it gives us the ability to work with the speaker and ask him to send it to certain places. In the past, it was designated to go to a certain place, a bill, and we had no say-so.
Yeah.
So it does give us a little bit more say-so. There's some committee changes that he's going to have the committee members on bills work the bill. In the past, it seemed like you throw it out there, they vote on it, and they throw it to the floor, and we argue with it or discuss it on the floor more. But they're going to put more emphasis on the committees, on getting good bills out and fixing them in the committee instead of
go.
coming to the floor and having all this debate about and adding a bunch of amendments to it. They're going to say if you got similar bills in a committee, why not look at them and join them together and then come out to the floor and discuss them instead of having 6 guys have the same similar bill come to the floor, waste a lot of time on the same bill. So we're trying to focus on some of the efficiency of the House, and I give credit to the speaker on that, because nothing against last speakers, but he sees that the committees have just become a kind of a rubber stamp and go on, for the public to talk about, and then that single bill comes out, So that said, I've got several bills coming out. I'll tell you, the committees I'm on, This year I'm on transportation infrastructure as the vice chair, which I'm blessed to do that.
Great.
I think that my experience as a trooper and in the DOT section for the last 11 years as a trooper gives me a lot of insight on that. And, with the way our infrastructure is in the state and the trucking and, that gives me insight on that. And I think he'd give me credit for that. And that's why he put me vice chair on that.
Oh, vice chair of transportation.
On transportation, yes.
Infrastructure. Who's the chair of
That's Cindy
transportation?
Buckeye Courtway, and she's on the chair of infrastructure.
Now, say that again,
Cindy Buckeye Courtway, and she's from Jeff County. And I think some of that is going to focus on with the discussions I've had with the chair and the speaker, that they're going to kind of focus a little bit on the ports on the Mississippi River. Because there at Herculaneum, all this stuff we saw in the past about getting clogged up in California and all this, Mississippi Herculaneum is the farthest up. Where I understand it, we can get a lot of trucking or them hubs to there and spread them out through Missouri. So that would benefit Missouri a lot as a hub for infrastructure or products going throughout the country. So I mean that's one of the things, and he thinks that's a good economic boost for Missouri. So he's focused on that part there.
Most people probably just don't realize at all how much freight actually goes up and down.
Oh yeah,
Missouri, and the Mississippi. And I'll be honest, it really didn't. I mean, I've always seen in the barges and things, and what go to Jeff City or go to St. Louis, this stuff. But actually, when I went down to a meeting in Cape Girardeau, and I took a drive over in Illinois one afternoon and down to Cairo, Illinois, and went and crossed the Ohio River at the deal there. And my gosh, it was absolutely incredible to me to see literally.
I mean, if you think about it, if we have a hub in Herculaneum right there, look what the factories here can ship it to there, go out instead of going to California or the East Coast on that.
Yep.
I do have a meeting. The chair's going to set up a meeting to take me over there to tour that, so I'm more familiar with that. And she already told me, the bigger ships can come up to Herculaneum. They already got that figured out, but they still continue up the Missouri and Mississippi in smaller ships. So, I mean, it doesn't just stop there. So it does go. I think that's a good economic boost to look at for infrastructure for our state. And
right, and it's close to the Ohio River as well, so it doesn't take very much to
they've got it figured out that's a good investment that we're going to look at. I think that would help a lot throughout the state,
Now, will a lot of this about the I-70 expansion or redo come through that committee as well?
There's a possibility that will come through this committee. There's another transportation accountability
now, is that Don
committee.
Mayhew?
That's Don Mayhew. He's the chair of that, and he's pretty good about that. He's very knowledgeable about MoDOT and trying to keep them accountable. In the past 2 years that I've seen him, he's very knowledgeable about where they spend their money and whatnot on that. So they did do 2 committees, and in some ways that's good, so we can focus on infrastructure on ours, and if there's accountability issues in MoDOT how are we going to do that? It just kind of separates that and gives us more time.
I want to make a pitch here for something that one of these days is going to come to the front there, and it's a bypass around Rolla.
Oh, yeah.
And come around the east side. And actually, this got brought up to me this week by somebody who actually is very knowledgeable of how many trucks come into Salem and go on through to the mines and how desperately they need actually a bypass to connect with I-44 on the east side of Rolla. Come across up by Love's Truck Port and come across there, swing around, and let 72 be able to run right onto one and go, because this plan they have, and the 72 extension is nice, going up past Walgreens there, across 63 and going up, and then around the roundabout and another roundabout and so on. But I think sometime or another we're going to have to get more information together on how many trucks we actually have accessing Salem, Dent County, and on to the east, the mines, and on that area.
And I think that's something you need to get to me so I can start that process now, because if we start that process now, I can start working with that. And if they're going to go to the west, there's a possibility, hey, we need, work with Justin Brown, say east would help my district out a lot, and Salem as well. It doesn't hurt if it goes east. If it goes east, it doesn't hurt the west, right?
Right.
So, I mean, help the economic, my district in that aspect, and they're willing, I think, to work with that, if it's accessible.
As I understand it, current plans are to somehow dump 63 onto I-44 there at the current overpass and take 63, 63 bypass, then go on I-44 out west of Raleigh, then create a new interchange out there, and then swing around. And it's just very hard to imagine how
I can see some of the reason for going to the west, because
I
then they
can.
hook up to the south part of 63.
Right.
Might be easier because that's where a lot of trucks go, and that may be the issue on that part there. On that, but
But we want it on the east.
I'm with you. I understand that.
But anyway,
Hey,
go
I'm
ahead.
here
I
to-
didn't.
I'm here to-
that,
so,
I'm
but-
glad you're on Transportation Committee. Great.
So, and I got put on a judiciary. I mean, that's one that got a lot of judiciary issues and things. A lot of good things come through that, public safety things, and just things that kind of in my wheelhouse as well. The two other ones I got put on is rules, and that's a committee that usually a bill comes through a committee, and then it comes to rules, and they come out and we discuss that, and it's kind of like it's a slow down process because you don't want all the bills to come out at once. So it comes to that committee and we'll meet and look at it and put it on through. And I'm on general laws, which is, kind of goes with my forte as well. A generality of things in the state that don't fit any categories, they'll throw it on that. So
Gotta fit in that crack somewhere.
yeah, I like the committees I'm on. I think they fit my personality and help the community move forward, And being a trooper for 28 years, I still have public safety issues in mind. I didn't get on that committee. There was a lot. There was there was four other law enforcement officers that got voted into the House this past year, and all four of them got put on the crime prevention public safety thing. So so give them the ability to see that. I'm still involved in that with the chair of that, and I know the vice chair, which is Benny Cook of public safety in Texas County. So I'm still going to work well with the public safety thing. So on that, that's as far as my committees. I can go over some of the bills that I filed if you want to hear them.
Let's hear it.
So two of them that I filed kind of directly reflect some of the stuff here. And one of them we talked about last year was changing the county road speed limits. There's a set speed across the state, and I think it's a little excessive for a gravel road. And I've talked to Commissioner Skiles about this, and he's talked to prior representatives about this, is setting the speed limit a little bit slower. And currently it's at 50 on every county road throughout the state unless posted.
Yeah,
And
unless we go through a process to
Yeah.
lower that speed limit,
yeah.
put signs up
Yeah.
and all the things. Yeah.
So and he's been instrumental in letting me know how this works. I knew the speed limit, but I didn't know the process. But they have to petition the legislator to allow them to reduce the speed on every road, then post it. So if we go through and reduce it to 40, all county roads they could just say are 40 unless posted. They can raise it back to 50 if it's a chip and seal.
Sure.
But then also it saves the county money, having to post all them signs and getting stolen and having to redone. So it's kind of an economic safety net for them, and plus it's a public safety issue. Most county roads you can't go 50 on safely.
Yeah.
So it would make it much easier for deputies or highway patrol, even if they're on the road, a gravel road, and see a guy doing 55 miles or 50 miles an hour.
Oh, yeah.
To know, hey, look, no.
And you can write them for careless and imprudent, but then you have to,
Yeah.
if they're going straight, I just think it. And then too, people will go the speed limit thinking that's what's a safe speed. If it's 50, well, if you're 40, that's why we post speed limits, to give a generality of what the roads are safe, maintained for. But that came into effect years ago whenever the 70 mile an hour and all that daytime speed limit changed. They just generically put that in one box.
Yeah. Commissioners across the state are hopeful that makes it through.
I think it'll
As they
save
talk
money
about
for
it.
counties and public safety wise, it'll be good with that.
Well, hopefully it'll eliminate some accidents you see where people hit gravel and they just slide off the
Yeah.
road. You hear a lot of one-car accidents on county roads.
Yeah. The other one is another bill I had last year again, and it's a 20% land ownership of the federal or state government. I've refiled that again. I've got that going to committee, and basically it's just I'm a true believer that land is an economic stimulus in areas. People come in, they buy land, they live there, they put money into it, they live in the community, and the community can grow. But when the government comes in and continues to buy and buy and buy, it stifles the ability for individuals to buy land for economic growth. And I feel 20% in any county should be limited. And all the bill does is says if there's more than 20% owned by the federal or state government, before they can purchase more in that particular county, they would have to go to the county commissioners and say, hey, we want to buy this 4,000 acres okay, then they get some insight and approval of how that's going to be. You're going to pay this in taxes. You're not going to, you're going to do this, or what are you going to do to it? Because most people don't know, and I'm not picking on any particular agency, okay? Because these agencies do well in some areas, but I think they take away from citizens in other. We got 13,000 acres north of Salem that no taxes paid on because the state owns it, and they purchased it before they obtained it before 77. So everybody in that school district has to pick up the extra tax burden for that. Right. So I just feel that the state shouldn't be putting more burden on our citizens by taking more land and not paying taxes, or paying the taxes we pay on the same piece of property.
Right, because even properties they bought since that they do make payment in lieu of taxes on, it is nowhere near equivalent to
well,
what
it never goes up
is
either, is the way I understand it.
Right, and it's always on unimproved land. And just like, for instance, out in my neck of the woods, and I work well with them, but MDC owns about almost 2,500 acres out there. Now, there's several farms they bought, put together. Those are farms that previously were owned by individual people who were running cattle. They were operating an agricultural operation and living there. But they had houses, and they had barns, and they had machinery, and they paid property tax. They paid the personal property tax as well, but they also had economics going on. They had a cattle industry going on, buying goods, services, and different things. And now they've bought it, and then the houses are bulldozed and removed, and the barns, and it's a very, very, very low rate of tax payment being made on that compared to what it would have been. And besides the economic activity, there's no way you can look at that and see that generates anywhere near the economic activity in the county that it would have been if it was still 4 or 5 different farms being operated there. So,
talking to a past representative that's from Oregon County, he said, and I truly believe that he knows what he's talking about. He's a hog farmer in the past. He says a farm operation will produce roughly 5 jobs in the community. I mean, you got the landowner, the feed store, the transportation people, all the stuff that goes along with a cattle operation or a farming operation. So you got, MFAs and, all these other places. And you got property owned by the state or the federal government. I have a ranger or 2, and I don't hold nothing against that. You got to have that, but it doesn't produce 5. If you have four farms on this piece of property, you're producing more economic growth and jobs than the federal government or that thing. So, I mean, that's why that bill was filed. I don't want to poke any bears on that, but they buy property or obtain property in rural areas because it's cheaper, and enough. When is enough? I mean, I don't have a problem going to other counties and starting to purchase to let people in them communities have it closer to them. But why should we in the rural areas get less benefit or not be able to grow economically? That's where that stems from.
What about property that people would donate to?
And that's another thing. In that bill, it says donate, bequeath,
Okay.
That is in there. And I've had some people come and don't like that part because they do a lot of that. And I've had people say, if I want to donate it to them, why can't I? And I understand that process, but we restrict China from purchasing property. We restrict certain groups of people from purchasing. And this is just, it's a rule and a law that there's rules and laws we got to abide by. And it's not to restrict them. It would just be, it's not restricting me, but it's restricting them from possessing it because there's a limitation that needs in that county, So, I mean, and, what's to say they can sell their piece of property to me and donate the money to MDC or whoever. They can do that, right?
Sure.
But because we're just trying to keep it from being, the economic development from being stifled by the federal state government because they have unlimited money. They don't have, when they go back and look, we're going to get this taxes and we're going to pay this. Mm-hmm. We have to work our way through and try to finance that. So it's just, I think that's a bill that is constituent based. No ifs, ands, and buts.
And if it's not in there, though, then you can bet that there will be instances of some shenanigans go on of land being sold to certain entity.
Oh, like Ducks Unlimited or Elks, whatever.
That entity then donate it, and a deal made.
So I mean, there's ways around everything, but it's just a start to keep them accountable.
Commissioners in South Missouri, particularly, who deal with this kind of an issue, appreciate that.
Well, there's only really 8 counties that's right there on that line, so that's and I've had people in committees. This is you need to fix some of this. because they understand that the rural areas are getting taken advantage of. And I really true that.
But
truly
convincing the other representatives from other areas that don't see this as a problem, that's where is that
yeah,
where the
that's the
problem
thing.
coming
The thing of it is last year I got the 3 different committees. I made sure I threw this out there right on committees when I brought this forth, and all of them, that's probably 36 to 40 representatives, and they all understand my dilemma, or the rural areas dilemma. So this year I hope to get it in two or three committees and bring it up and maybe get 40 more, right? So then once you get that up going there, then you can say, hey, get them to vote, and they understand that even the guy that's conservation, loves the conservation, he thinks there should be some kind of compensation back for the people in these rural areas. I mean, but it's just the process of trying to get enough people to hear it and right. Go forward. Yeah. The one other one that I haven't filed that I'm working on that directly reflects, which I directly reflect a certain community, is timber sales or timber cutting in these rural areas off of state property. I'm going to follow up with that again this year. It's very difficult because I just feel no state agency should profit or get compensation from any natural resources in the state. And that's how I'm going to go about that. They can manage it, they can do whatever with it, but when you get compensation from natural resources from a certain county or certain timber sales, none of that comes back to the county. You know, I know $173,000 went to the MDC out at Indian Trails several years ago. Mm-hmm. That went straight into their coffers. I feel that's a slush fund. That money should either come back to the county, the school district, or go back into the logging industry to keep that going.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's something I'm looking at, but that would have to go back to the vote of the people in some ways, because the Constitution, we want to abide by the Constitution. And it's just frustrating when you go to Jeff City, and I'm going to vent just a little bit here on the radio. So all of you know out there that I'm just as frustrated at times, right?
That's why I buy this program, Stan. Go ahead, Ron.
That's what?
That's why I buy this program.
So
go ahead, Ron.
So Ron can vent.
So I'll buy some more if you need me to.
I've been occasionally too, right, Stan?
Exactly.
Yes, sir. Go
It's
right
just
ahead.
so frustrating. You go to Jeff City and have a constituent-based issue and work for people out here, and a state agency says, hey, that's not best for my mission. What is the state's mission? What is their overall mission? Is to work for the public. But whenever you put a bill up, you have state agencies come in and say this will affect our mission. Well, it's affecting our constituents on what you're doing negatively. And I truly feel any mission that any state agency has, if it has any negative effect on the constituents or the citizens of Missouri, their mission should be trumped before anybody else's. And sometimes it's sad that we as legislators have given our legislative authority away on these director appointments, because they get appointed and then they make these rule changes, and then we don't like the rule changes, or the citizens don't like the rule changes, and then we've got, as legislators, got to fight them, pass a law to make them change something back.
I think I know the agency, the state agency you're talking about on that. There really wasn't one of them that really was a major land buyer and so on, and yet they kind of weighed in on your bill a little bit to try to throw a little bit of their weight around against it. And
it does
I'd
go.
let them know too that I thought they needed.
It does go around to everybody about that 20%, but everybody wants to buy and buy and buy. So you got 10 agencies wanting to buy property in a county. Well, they don't care about if they buy it, and they don't care if they buy it. They don't care. But then when the totality of it is they get 10,000 acres because one's got 2,000, one's got 2,000, one's got 5,000, one's got 100. It gobbles it up from us as citizens. So they should. That's why any state agency that restricts the whole group. So they got to work with the county commissioners to go forward.
Now, let me ask this: How would that possibly affect where, say MoDOT is doing a highway widening deal or something?
Well,
where they
that to me,
main issues and
how hard would that be for the county commission to say that is going to benefit the county?
Right.
We are good with that. Mm-hmm. But if someone's going to buy 5,000 acres and not pay taxes on it and bulldoze everything down,
color, yes.
You get, and if they may say, hey, we will continue to pay this much money to the county for this to be able to obtain this property, and the county, okay, that's an agreement, and move forward, so it's not putting the burden on the taxpayer. You know, I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it. Is it gives the local control back to you guys to say that we don't like that, and if the people vote the commissioners in that want that, then they've done that.
My problem always has been with state agencies, and you as a local representative, you know what the local people need. They do not. They make decisions based upon whatever, like you're saying, their mission is, but they have no idea how that's going to affect that local community. You talk about the scenic byways and things of that nature. Hey, they all sound great until you start looking at how it's going to affect that local community that road is on, and all of a sudden you can't do what you used to do for 50, 60 years. Well, wait a minute, I can't put a sign up that I have tomatoes anymore? Nope, it's a scenic byway. You can't do that. Wait a minute, it's my property. I can do what I want. No, and this is where I start having some problems. The state mission should not be as important as property rights of the individual on their own property.
I agree.
You know, and that's where I see the problems coming in, but they don't see it that way. They always think that their mission is more important. I said, I'd like to go to your house. Let me put some signs on your front yard and just say, okay, you know, you are a tax robber right now because they're taking taxes away from people with some of their decisions. They're also making it harder for some of these people to live because they're restricting them in many areas.
And that's where I've thrown this by research on the thing is how do we go back to before any decisions are made by a state agency, you have to meet this check mark, and this check mark. And then too, you got to look at who you're voting in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a big part of the process on everything. You know, look at school boards and local control and representatives that you vote in. You know, I wasn't jumping up and down to run. I mean, I was asked to run, and I felt led to do that because I've been in the community for so long, and when do we give back? You know, and that's where I'm at. I mean, and so you got to look at who you're voting in too,
and what they stand for, and what they'll help with. Yeah.
I want to ask you a question. So when you first went to Jeff City, what was the first thing that really opened your eyes to government? You had no clue this was going to be part of what you had to do, because there's always that eye-opening experience when you get up there thinking, okay, I've got all these ideas, I want to do this and this, and all of a sudden they're like, whoa.
Well, whenever. I guess my first thing was when you get up there and they don't tell you nothing. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're kind of on your own as a representative, and one of the reasons that's for is because we got term limits, which that's been voted on, but the guys with 8 years on that's getting ready to leave, right? They don't want to compete against me, so that information flow does not come down to us. That was what was discouraging to me, because I come from an efficient organization, the Missouri Highway Patrol. They're pretty efficient. We had a mission. Our mission was to go for this, and this is the way we go for it. Up there, they didn't know what the mission was. It depending on who was in charge, what things got done, you know, and the biggest thing is it seemed like a little. I'm just going to be honest. It seemed like a little junior high up there. We got adults, but they're acting like junior hires when they do something. If you vote against something for your constituents, they hold that against you, and emotions go for it. And I'm thinking, I'm voting for my constituents and what they believe in. You know, I don't believe what you believe in St. Louis or whatever, but sometimes we do, right? But they hold that against you, and that's what you got to get over on that part of things. So it was just eye-opening how inefficient after 200 years of a legislator it is, and every 2 years it's the same. Mm-hmm. It starts off with different leadership, and what do they do? So this, I'll be honest, this year I think the leadership has touted what his main goals are, and they're probably right along mine. Public safety is one of the biggest ones, and petition initiative, trying to fix the system on that. So, and taxes. We've already got bills in the House for property tax issues, and in the House and Senate. Mm-hmm. And we just got to be careful, because that rural counties need the property tax issues. How do we address that? But it was just so inefficient and seemed childish at times. And I'm an adult. I mean,
and I've heard some lobbyists say you have to understand that is a huge clash of egos.
No,
and that's true too. And then too, with I did find out too through my process is
power play.
I was in places where I was invited to the governor's thing, and there was lobbyists there because they were lobbying for this and that. And you hear a lobbyist talk to one of these CEOs, say, "Hey, I know the commissioner. I know this because the lobbyist has been there 20 years," and it kind of stepped on me because I'm thinking I'm the rep. I'm supposed to be working with MoDOT to help these guys out. And I did go to that lobbyist later on and say, you kind of stepped on me a little bit. I understand you've been here 20 years. You know the commissioners on the highway department. I don't. But, that I was elected to represent these people. But the lobbyists step in, so that's a big thing we're trying to maneuver through is the money that's pushed up there by the lobbyists. And who, I don't think any of my bills you can say this person's paying me, because most of mine I'd say all mine are constituent-based or public service-based. But you know which bills are up there for the insurance companies and who's doing this and who's doing that. And it's obvious who's doing the open enrollment, things like that. There's just certain things. So and that's frustrating, I don't take nothing. I'm not married to anything basically up there because you could have the best bill in the world and the speaker doesn't like it or somebody in the Senate doesn't like it and it gets squashed. So, but that's the biggest thing, the inefficiency of our government and the lack of really concern sometimes of the people they went up to represent and how many representatives file bills that benefit them or their business. So that's kind of, I guess I file them too because I'm public safety. That was my business, but there's no economics in that.
Well, and we elect farmers to go up to the legislature. They're farmers, and they're up there, and they're going to represent agriculture. You've got a guy I know up towards Mexico who's a veterinarian, very involved in ag, and he's great at representing that and working that. That's why you have that mishmash of all those different areas there.
And the lobbyists, I'm not bashing on lobbyists because the Cattlemen's Association they go up to represent the cattlemen that can't make it to the Capitol.
Right.
So but they get bashed on for that lobbyists do. But they go up there to lobby for some people who can't make it up there, and I think the general public and the general people get frustrated because they can't take off work to come up and concern their concerns on that. So that's kind of the adjust to that.
And the Farm Bureau, another one.
The Farm Bureau, all the agencies that we all agree with here locally, they have people, the corn, soybean people. They're representing the people in them places. And the soybean people come to me and I says, I don't have no soybean growers in my area, but if it benefits people in the state and doesn't not affect my area, why would I not support that? We cannot support everything because we don't have it. But if it doesn't affect us and it's beneficial to the state, we're good.
Missouri is such a diverse state. You have so much in the northern half of the state is totally different than the southern half.
And get to that part is the petition initiative issue is, the amendments that are getting put on the ballot, when that was formed, it was 180 signatures with the population, right? That needs to be corrected. The population's with us. We need to have a little bit more. It doesn't take away from the people, right? But if we only had 100,000 or million people and you need 180,000 votes, and we have 3 million people now, we need to increase that to make it more fair throughout the state. Because these signatures and whatnot are getting passed by St. Louis, Kansas City, Columbia, and Springfield because I'm thinking we need an electoral type system in Missouri because that's why our presidency's that way. So three cities don't pick our president, But that's what's happening in the state. Our rural areas are shrinking, suburbs are getting bigger, and the needs of them are different than ours, and we're going to be fighting that if we don't
look how
fix some of
Amendment 3 passed, how it got on the ballot, and how it passed.
Look at all
the numbers.
And there was a lot of money pushing that.
Sure.
There was not a lot of money to go against it.
Very little.
So it was, and it just shows you that, I was told you with $2 million you can get anything put on the ballot with our new petition initiative to pay people to get signatures. And most people, and I'm not saying this bad, White, is they get one part of the bill and they like it and they don't know the rest of the 37 pages on it, and they like it, and they've been convinced that it's good for police, and somebody tells them it's good for police and veterans, which it's not, but that's what the news articles were saying. But we as citizens, and I heard an article on the news the other day that Americans, when they hear something, right, and a week later you tell them that wasn't true, more than 50% of them don't believe you that it's not true.
Yeah, whatever they heard first is.
So it's kind of, and that's how advertisement works, and that's why negative advertisement works in politics. Because they believe it, and it's hard to disprove it negative.
Even if you have actual proof, they won't believe it.
But so that's the problem is, just my true belief is I want to educate everybody. I want to be open. I'll tell you why I voted for it, why I didn't vote for it. And I had a lady call my office screaming and yelling the other day about something. I said, ma'am, if you just stop yelling, I'll answer it. And I talked to her, but you get focused on one part of something, and they don't realize I have 50 different things dealing in this same issue that I'm dealing with instead of the one, and I agree with that. So, but them are the three bills that I think affect directly that one's going to be an HJR on the timber sales or the natural resources I'm going for, because if there's lead in underneath something and the federal government gets compensated for lead mines, right? But I do give credit. The federal government does give a portion of that back to the county. So, and that's all I'm trying to do with the state agencies type stuff on that one. But
you had a bill last year, maybe did it make it through on changing regulations somewhat on logging trucks?
Oh, yes, that did make it through.
Okay.
There was some logging truck issues last year that I, as a DOT and stopping log trucks as a trooper, I thought wasn't fair to our logging industry, and so I went to the logging industry to say, where can we fix this and whatnot, and it did. It was a way we measured and weighed them. It was so subjective because one officer could stop somebody and measure this, and the next one does this, and so this just made it across the board the same as we already had regulations for waste haulers and tractors that had, and all I did is mimic that. So if we already had weight restrictions on other trucks, we've proven that it was safe, so why not do the same thing with the same trucks? So that was it got vetoed, but it got put back on the ag bill because the timber industry gets kind of a short end of the stick sometimes because they tout our timber industry is for our ag department in Missouri that they use that for their statistics, but they don't get the benefits that soy, all these other people, cattle get. So
don't get near the credit.
So I think that's why the governor was understood that the timber industry is a big industry in the state, and they put that back on there because it helped clarify some stuff. It really wasn't it was just a clarification thing to help make it easier for them and make it for police to follow the law and enforce the law.
Standardize something is much easier than trying to pick something out.
Yeah, I was good with that, but there's I think I got 3 public safety bills kind of coming out, and one I know that people are going to, and no, this affects our area too. I've got a bill where it's going to allow non-violent felons to possess firearms after they have done their sentence. It's non-violent. I had numerous occasions throughout the district where somebody got 3 DWIs when they were in 16, 17, 20, and for 30 years they've been good citizens and they can't get a firearm to go hunting, right? Or write bad checks, you got a bad check felony. You've done your 4 or 5 years on that, you're good. I don't know if people realize if you get 3 tickets for no driver's license, it becomes a felony. So then you couldn't possess a firearm, right? Yeah. So, I think that's just makes sense. And even being in law enforcement, I don't want to restrict somebody from their gun rights unless it's a violent victim. If there's a victim in the crime, it's a whole different deal. So that's in there, and that's on. I've had several judiciary and another sponsor put that on his public safety bill. So that's in 2 or 3 places. So I'm hoping that'll pass. Then they don't have to go through the judicial process or the expungement process, which is very difficult in the state. Yes. Because you got to ask the governor and you got to hire an attorney, and it costs money to do that. And it just I think goes back to let's put people that want to be good citizens, don't take their rights away from them forever, So that one's that one. A bail bond reform bill that I had last year. And basically what that is the courts have ruled that when someone commits a crime, the judges have to consider the economics of the crime, the person who committed the crime. So what's going across the state is, he can't afford bonds, so let's release him, right? They're not considering the severity of the crime he committed if he has done crime in the past because of this ruling. But along with that ruling, the Supreme Court has said the states can mandate or make rules and laws regulating the release of prisoners. So Judge Evans in West Plains had a 20-page bill that he's been pushing, and me and him talked. I shrunk it down to a page and a half, And that's the first bill I get heard on Monday morning. And basically, with my bill, it's language that says the judge has to consider the severity of the crime, the history of the person who committed the crime, if he's a flight risk, and has to consider the safety of the general public. But he can also consider the economic status of and as well. But that's not the first thing he has to put on the top of the list. We're saying these are the things you got to consider, and then you can consider this. It's just a way the judges follow Supreme Court rulings, and they don't want to get in trouble or get sued for making somebody pay bond when somebody else didn't. So it just gives the state the authority to say this is what you're going to do, more wordage. So that's that one. The leadership in the House has come to me. Dean Plocker, his big function, one of his main things is public safety throughout the state, right? Mm-hmm. So he has asked me to carry a bill to take the St. Louis Police Department out of the hands of the politicians in St. Louis and make it a commission, just like Kansas City is. Kansas City is run by a commission, so the political interference is not involved in the police. Well, I'm not going to say it's not, but it's not as effective.
Directly.
The mayor can't say you can't do this or whatnot. And I'm a true believer. Anytime you put politics in police or the military, you lose your effectiveness. Is why have them, So that's going to be probably one of the major bills that. And I think he asked me to carry that because of the credibility I had last year that I gained, and that I was a trooper for 28 years, and and I'm only doing it because of public safety. I'm not doing it because of to bash on the politicians. I'm not doing it to do economics, but it has one.
You don't have an axe to grind in it.
I do not.
Then make it better.
It just makes sense.
And it is a public safety thing for that. So that's a good one there. I think that needs to be done, because how many people won't go to St. Louis at night or whatnot because they're scared of the crime. 3 times the murder rate, national murder rate. And I was interviewed the other day. When local control isn't working, and I believe that they should give control, but it doesn't take local control away, because the mayor still gets to appoint people, and they get to appoint people for that commission and still have some say-so. But when do we wait? When it's 4 or 5 times? We need to get involved, because it's a state deal. So, but the other one, I had one other one. The director of child services come to me and asked me to carry a bill, which is kind of police related. They had an incident where there's anonymous phone calls list. You can call in anonymous about tips and whatnot. Well, a lady called in on an anonymous tip, and she had kidnapped her daughter. I mean, it was an actual kidnapping, right? Well, they run into a problem, because if they release the lady's name to anybody, it's a crime. So it took them about 4 hours to get a hold of the courts to do this, just to release the name to the police to catch this lady that kidnapped someone. So I mean, and you never thought about that, but if your kid gets kidnapped and there's an anonymous call, you can't release that information. So what this bill will do is limit. If there's a crime being committed, they can release the information to the police. They can't call nobody else, but if the crime's being committed, so it streamlines it. We just don't want people not calling, right? Because we don't want to violate that part. Wow. But there's got to be criteria that has to be met to release that information. It's very restrictive, but it's to keep someone from being kidnapped. You don't want a child kidnapped or something. 4 hours, they're lucky that the situation they ended up catching her, but it could have easily been, that time frame could have been bad. So that's something I'm hoping to get through too. So
just help with communication, period.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people up there that don't like databases and stuff like that, because it's they're more libertarian type things with government in control. Well, this is just trying to fix that kid that get kidnapped. Okay, if yours was kidnapped, do you want that released? Yeah, but we don't want that to happen. So, but anytime, I mean, anybody who wants to call my office, I'm always available. Email office, I'm always available, or respond it back. I say that's the best thing I want to do is get the. Sometimes politicians don't want you to know, because then they can do things without knowing. Then you get to find out later. I'd rather. You call me and give me your advice, and we're not always going to agree. Like I told somebody the other day, I have 37,000 constituents, right? And they all have an opinion, So we just talk about it and see where we're going.
What's your new, now you got a new office number.
I do have a new office. It's still ron.copelan@house.mo.gov. I mean, that's my email. Or you can go on house.mo.gov website and find all the members in legislation.
What's your room number?
313-2. So, but yeah, it's I enjoy coming on just to let people know the state of the state was there. The governor's got some good things that I think can help our community, local community, on daycare issues possibly. I know there are people, getting involved in that. He's proposing an 8.7% statewide worker increase. I support that. I mean, some people may not support that, but we're losing we're not having state workers. Used to, when I was years ago, a state working job was a good job, good insurance, but we've fallen behind with.
It's fallen behind the private sector.
We really have. I mean, even the county, I think, have workers sometimes may have done that. It's just trying to figure out how much taxes we want to put towards that is the thing. Is what do we do? And I think we're going to address some good issues this year.
Well, that's just it. The government, the private sector, if I am selling toasted ravioli, I can raise my price of toasted ravioli to pay somebody more money. County can't go and...
Unless we raise taxes.
Well, but I meant that date or that month or that year. They can't just say, hey, we're going to go charge somebody extra money to go grade their road. Can't do that,
That's our challenge. Is
I know.
It's a limitation. And I think a big problem is when the people vote in the minimum wage change, because it was a huge problem. Because for smaller businesses, of course, if you make $500,000 and above, you're affected. If you make under $500,000, you're not affected. You can still pay them the federal minimum wage. The problem is with that, you can't find anybody to work for the federal minimum wage anymore because these people are paying all this $11, $12, $13, $14 an hour. Yeah, that's fine and dandy if they're working to get $11, $12, $13, $14 an hour. Now, they don't want to do anything. They just want to do $11, $12, $13, $14 an hour and stand there.
To be honest,
that's all they want to do.
It seems to me almost like since the beginning of 2000, with the COVID thing hit in 20, and it seems like since 2019 things have just been almost like stood on their head as far as the economics and how things work and what you have to do, and it's just locally, state-wise, budget-wise, and you guys, you're one of the big things you got to do this year before you get done in May is adopt a budget for the state, and in that budget and the counties are doing this, but you've got still deal with lots of ARPA money and that, and it affects the appearance of budget that at some point down the road those monies aren't going to be there, and then reality will hit home. Counties are looking at this too. It looks like you got lots of money to do things, and you're going to probably do them, and we're doing that. We're going to go ahead and get our courthouse redone this year. We're going to use probably the balance of the ARPA money that we end up with left, along with our general revenue dollars. But at some point, this big pile of federal money that just kept showing up and keeps coming is going to end, because frankly I don't know how they think they're ever going to pay for what they've already done. And you have to get back to looking at what are the real dollars that you bring in through the taxes, and with hopefully not having to raise them, and what can you afford to do within the confines of that. And you guys, and then budget wise, that's probably your biggest, all these different things you're going to be doing, but at the end probably the very biggest thing wouldn't be adopting a budget that the Senate and the House.
I think so. I was at a meeting. I was invited, or several of us invited to a meeting with the governor's staff, and we talked about that. And apparently, this big budgetary, it's already designated to where it wants to go, and what departments are going to get to divvy out this much and this much and this much. So they've already got their plan. Now, it'll come to the House and come to the Senate to see what they want. So it'll be, and then determine the totality of it. So yeah, it is unheard of, they said, to have that, $5 billion Missouri has for this time frame, because they've never had that in the past. We just need to be, and the Speaker of the House talked about giving another tax break back to people, because why not give the money back to them? That's public safety, petition initiative, and giving taxes back to the people are some of his main issues. Which is to me is a good thought process. We got $5 billion. Why don't we give some of that back? But there's so many people want to spend it on whatever. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to ask for. I'm against it, but like I said last time I was here, we had people in St. Louis, Kansas City asking for $250 million. They don't come and give us training, and that's another thing you said. What frustrated me about it is they don't come and tell me I can ask for my district for that. They just let me fend for myself. And so they don't have to fight me for the same money.
Okay.
So, don't believe me. I've talked to Darrell about some things, the jail, Montauk. I went over to Crawford County. Courtroom. And so, that's some of the things I've talked to, Four Rivers come up to my office. They may be trying to expand some locally here and, to benefit the community. And I've been to Crawford County to see, what do you guys need? The money is going to be there, and I was voted to represent, and if St. Louis gets $200 million, I want to get my $200 million, and then let the county people spend it and do the best for that. Now, I hate that the federal government did that. Don't get me wrong, and people might say I'm getting on that bandwagon. I say, yeah, but if I don't help my district and just I can stand up in principle and say, I hate this. I'm not going to take the federal money, because there are people that tell me to do that, and I understand that. But that means St. Louis, Kansas City, and these other agencies are going to take it, and then us in Denton, Crawford are going to have to make up for that in our own taxes or other things, or do without. And when do we start doing that?
And you have to say, what are some major capital investments that could be made with that? That would
and that will prolong things for years.
Yep.
That'll benefit for years.
So. Yep. So,
no, it's all good.
Yep.
No, I know that you're going to talk about any of the city things. I was going to say no. I'm not going to go ahead. I know Crawford County is doing a marijuana tax, but is that something in the future that you guys
I think so.
may talk about in the future?
We can put a 3% sales tax on the ballot for recreational marijuana.
I'm not a big tax person, but I feel that and I'm not going to go down this path, but the things that the county, the police are going to start dealing with recreational marijuana, it's reasonable people will do it reasonably. Unreasonable people won't. We're going to have issues to deal with on that aspect, where if the county puts that on the ballot, that fee that's getting paid for come back to the county can manage some of the issues that come up.
Yep.
I truly believe that.
And cities can put the same thing. As I understand it, cities can put a separate 3% for cities on there. And it's on there. Some counties, I think, are putting them on the ballot.
They are. Crawford County's planning on doing it.
I think Cape Girardeau, the city of Cape Girardeau, maybe Cape Girardeau County, maybe putting it on the ballot. And we maybe would have, but the city of Salem has these two issues
that
they're going to be talking about and stuff. And so I think we probably decided just let it set, so that
but it is something that need to consider, and the people need to realize, and get the input. Put it out there, get the input to the people the voters in and whatnot.
The only ones paying it would be the users,
and they're the ones that probably don't want to pay it, which makes sense. If you smoke, who pays some tobacco tax, right? So it's kind of a use tax in a way. If you use it, you're going to pay it. If you don't use it, you're not going to pay it. And it's
consumption tax. Yeah.
If I wanted steak and there was a tax on steak, I'm going to buy the steak and pay the tax.
Many counties, though, are now a separate issue, and you talk about tax. Many counties across the state and cities. I think City of St. James went ahead and got it and passed it a couple of years ago. Is you said use tax, but there is what is a use tax, which is a separate tax from sales. It's sales tax is what it is, but use tax is a tax on internet sales. That unless you've actually passed a separate measure allowing for collection of the use tax, then many of these internet sales are done without any sales tax on them. And local businesses are paying their property tax and personal real estate and so on.
Sales.
Out of
you
state
can run out of
sales.
Arkansas, buy a truck, and never pay a sales tax.
And so there's things there that we'll need to take a look at down the road, because it really isn't fair to local businesses to allow these out of state.
And talking to other representatives and other commissioners and other down in West Plains, I think they get close to $700,000 a year on their use tax for the county to improve the roads and to do things with. But you just got to discuss it and see what the people in the county want to vote for. If they do, they do. If they don't, they don't.
And you got to understand, by doing that allows them to keep the other regular property tax and sales taxes a little bit lower.
And the one thing they need to realize, the state is getting their sales tax.
Yeah, the state gets it all.
The state gets their, I think it's like a 3% or something, 3 cents on the dollar.
4.25.
What is it?
4.25.
So when you do buy something on the internet or whatnot, technically that 4.25% is going back to the state. We're getting that, but the county isn't getting the portion that they have. So state's going to get their part. I had nothing to do with that one, but they're going to get theirs. So
It's been that way for quite a while. It's
You know,
an
so-
interesting deal. But counties and cities have to pass a separate one. I know St. James passed it a couple of years ago. So if you're in the city of St. James and you order on the internet or whatever, then you fall under that. So it's kind of an interesting deal. So anyway, it'll be a busy year, but I have heard real good things about the leadership that you have at the House. As far
And
as
you're going to
the
hear
state.
people there. There's people out there that think that there's like memes about him, but if you sit down and think about it, he's more open than the last leadership. Would I like to do more changes? Yeah, but you take it as a step at a time and work towards that thing. And I'm an optimist, thinking that we can do better, give the voice back to the people, and work that way. And he's at least open for discussion. And he changed some things that were controversial. He said, okay, if that's the way we're going to do it, we'll do it. He didn't say, by gosh, this is what we're going to do. So, But I look forward to this year. I'm on the horse already. I told Stan earlier I was trying to find the horse 2 years ago, but at least I got the horse going, and we got a good senator to work with, Justin Brown. He's always very good with working with me, and doing things and working for the community and whatnot. So
You got a good mix of representatives up there who have previous experience in county government.
a lot, Peggy
County clerk,
McGaw,
Peggy McGaw.
Roger Reedy. I mean, there's a lot of them up there.
Southeast.
Jamie Berger.
Jamie Berger. Yeah.
So
Yep.
there's a lot of
Former
good. I mean, there's a lot of good elected people up there. We got young people up there too. And I'm not gonna, we need good young input, on things. But I'm just a big true believer in you need to vet everybody, vet me, vet everybody when you vote. So
Very good.
any
I got
other
nothing
questions?
else to ask.
Ought to
No,
be,
good.
ought to be an interesting year.
It will be an interesting year. I'm excited to go. I mean, and see where it goes. And it's.
I bet you're a little more optimistic actually this year, being able to accomplish, maybe get some things done.
Well, I think just because what the leadership has done and put more emphasis on the committee chairs to vet things instead of rubber stamp them. I mean, I'm not bashing on how it was by any means, but if you learn how to cut a tree down this way, that's how you cut the tree down, right?
Right.
When do you change that policy
But
or
after
procedure?
you've been there a couple of years too, and they know what you are then and what they can trust you with, then they give.
Oh yeah,
then you've got more
and
stuff.
I take pride in when a director of child services comes to me and asks me to carry a bill. That means they have trust in me, and I've done something right for the last 2 years. I do have one more thing that I want to throw a shout out to the Missouri State Highway Patrol, because if you know what RAPBAC is, and I'll explain that, RAPBAC is a program where in the past teachers and child care people had to be fingerprinted so that we knew, our parents and people knew that them people weren't criminals. So if they committed a crime and they got fingerprinted, their fingerprints would be on file and it would notify the daycare provider or the school, right?
Right.
And when it's all started, teachers had to get fingerprinted every 6 years and go through another background check. And I always wondered why that was, and I talked to the liaison of the patrol on that. Well, that's how they funded that program, right, when it started. Okay. So last year I was able to get, where the police officers have to be fingerprinted, because there was no, as a policeman, I could go out of state, commit a crime, come back and continue to work in the city or county, and nobody would ever know I committed a crime, right? So and I didn't want to work next to a police officer like that. So we added police officers to that RAPBAC program, right?
Yeah.
So, and all that did was, if you did commit the crime, the system would notify your supervisor. So they knew that you committed a crime, not that you were guilty or not, so they could either figure out what they wanted to do with you at that time, so you weren't hiding under the radar. So I want to give a shout out to the Missouri Highway Patrol, because they come to me this year and said, hey, we want to do away with the 6-year and the background checks on teachers. Because every 6 years, the teacher was having to get fingerprinted and $45 for the background check. And I always wondered why. Once you're fingerprinted, it was funding the program. Most agencies up there won't do that. They'll continue to take the money and take the money. So, they saw that, we don't need teachers funding this. We'll take that. It's being funded. We can afford to fund it. So I did want to do that, because I always wondered why we did that. I probably should have done that last year to make them not pay it. But I give them credit that they did come forward and say, hey, we don't want them to pay no more. The first time, we know they're in the system. They've been fingerprinted. And if they commit a crime, anytime during that,
We've got it.
it's gonna ping up anyway. So they don't need to redo that. So that's one thing I wanted to make sure I did, because that doesn't happen to state agencies very often. It comes, hey, we don't need no more money. We don't want them to pay. That's very unusual.
That is unusual.
So, but I'm excited, and like I said, any questions, and I'll come on anytime if you want me to come on, if there's a hot topic going, and we'll go with that. And I mean, there's information is knowledge, and the more you guys know, the better off you can make good decisions.
Very good.
So,
well, we thank you for coming on, Ron.
That's
I
all right.
always appreciate hearing
Thank
what
you.
you have to say.
that's all right. I'm gonna sit and listen.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Real good. We got a little more county stuff, and
Yeah.
I've
Welcome to Stare. You
I'll
go.
listen. I'll stay and listen.
I've got a hot date with a couple of ladies to eat breakfast. My mom and
Oh
sister.
my goodness.
Yeah. So we got a little bit more stuff to cover. Anyway. Otherwise, about all week, we talked about budget and state, and that's pretty much what we've been doing the last couple of weeks on the county. We did.
Yeah.
We have got a tentative budget that is available, folks, and we'll have a budget hearing on January
30th.
January 30th, so 10 a.m., and we'll get the budget approved. Can't pay any bills this month other than payroll until we get the budget approved. So that's always our goal, is to get that budget done and approved as quick as we can. And, it's a good budget. I've got it here with me if you want me to go over it line by line, but no, you don't, and we're not going to. But there,
You want to do it after you pass it, or you want to do it now?
It's about an inch thick,
I
right?
haven't had a chance to look at it yet.
It's about an inch thick.
Just picked it up yesterday.
28 total funds in that budget, and I've been through every one of them line by line, and it's a good budget.
Didn't we add one
you'll see-
for ARPA and funds?
We we added one for opioid fund. We already had the ARPA fund
opioid
in there.
fund. I
So
knew there was
that
another
one's
one.
there, but we did get a settlement on the opioid
Yeah.
lawsuit settlement.
Well,
So
what
there'll
about
be
this other money that we got from the state? Is that just going under ARPA?
no. Well, it's actually in there included in the ARPA, but as far as expending it wise, then we will. It's included. You'll see a line under General Revenue Fund under other for LATCF, Local Assistance Tribal Consistency Fund, another $488,000 of federal money that came that we can use for whatever.
I didn't
So,
know how that was going to be accounted for. But
yeah, that's where you'll see. That's
Yeah,
it.
more than
And
likely.
grandkids and great grandkids, how they're going to do it, I don't know. So at any rate, but we ended the year, as we talked about before, we ended the year in pretty good shape. We had we'd set aside $800,000 or so to do some courthouse renovation, and we really just finally got started this fall. So we've got another $1 million set aside in that, but the contracts is for $1.6 million. We've spent about $300,000 out of the General Revenue Fund already towards that, but we know that $1.6 million is going to grow as they get into it and find some things that got to be fixed that weren't part of the original contract. And we've already talked about going ahead and as they do some work up on they're going to take some of those chimneys down that you see sticking out of the old roof. We're going to get them down below roof because they don't serve any function. We don't have any wood stoves anymore. There's price of oil and things, I don't know, and propane, we might go back to that, I don't know, but we may be putting them back up someday. But at any rate, we may go ahead and put a metal roof on, and what that'll look like, I mean, some have had concern about, didn't think that it was going to look right with a raised metal seam roof on top of the building, but if you're going to put a roof back on, and for long term, a metal roof is the way to go with it probably. But there's some things they do now with metal roofing, make they look like shingles and things. So, but that's going to be some additional cost that wasn't part of the original deal. And some other things though, as we get into it, that I know we're going to find that even as they go to put windows in, we're going to probably end up having to do some inside work on window sills and facings and things that wasn't part of the deal. So that's going to grow from 1.6 to who knows what. But as we get into it, but we ended the year because of, we didn't expend a lot of these funds before just for general revenue of about $2.4 million, and like I said, we're gonna pull about $1 million to $1.5 million out of that to get this courthouse work done. It's got to be done. We've been concentrating on so many other things, and it was getting the jail built and all these different things for so many years, and so now we're going to get the courthouse, get a facelift done on it, and get her fixed up and so on. So the budget shows an ending balance for general revenue of about $1.1 million, and that's just one of the funds, but that's what funds the major part of our expense. They're keeping the courthouse going and stuff. But the sheriff's budget looks good. The two jail funds all look good, and people can see, and I'm just pretty pleased altogether.
So as part of your budget, do you have a separate account out there for the money we have to pay back to DOR? Is that kept separately?
It's anticipated. No. Yes and no. Okay. What that's going to be when that is finally done, and I'm more optimistic now than I have been. I had a nice long visit with our attorney last night. He had just had some. We're going to have a closed session visit with him this coming Thursday, and I think we are finally to a pretty good resolution on that. We had to put the budget together that we know there's $933,000 and some dollars plus still to be repaid to Department of Revenue, and that will be repaid by withholdings every month from the various funds. And so we did account for roughly that amount as less sales. If you see what sales tax brought in this year, we made a reduction in all those funds that are affected, an amount that we thought would probably easily cover that. And so that is, so yes and no, it is reflected on the revenue side of less money, because that's how it's going to be recouped. On that.
You're not going to write a check.
No.
They're actually just going to hold back a certain percentage.
Right. Every month, when we get sales tax, we report. If they do this, they'll just withhold what that amount comes to per agreement with us. And I can sit here feeling better than I have in several months.
Is that years-wise, or?
I can tell you after we get
after Thursday's closed session.
And I can tell you the new director that was appointed to Director of Department of Revenue here a little over a year ago, Wayne Wallingford, who's a former senator, representative, and who's held in high esteem over in his part of the country, that being a real person of the people and would always bend over backwards. He's been very helpful and very willing to help with us, and very I think we're very fortunate to have had him get that position. So anyway, so answer your question, there is
it's accounted for in the
accounted
budget.
for on the revenue side as less revenue would get, because that's how they're going to account for that and take that. So we'll that finally, I believe I'm on a pretty good point with. So anyway, that was it. And again, we'll pay for that of ARPA. There also is a new fund that people will see. That's the opioid settlement fund, and we will be getting opioid settlement dollars as we understand it. And we still got to get some more information. And actually, I'm going to be talking to Bonnie Prieg at Regional Planning Commission, because all these counties are getting this, but it's a little hazy on how it works. I do know that 15% of those monies we get can just be going ahead and be transferred to general revenue or whatever, to be used for whatever, but 85% of them funds have to be used for opioid programs, opioid addiction treatment, so forth, so on. So, but we'll have to see how that works, but there will be annual reports that have to be made to the courts on it, not to the state or the feds, but an annual report that will have to be, that the judges put in place with the settlement to be made. So there is an opioid fund there, and people will see. So we'll be working on that as we go along this year. But otherwise, and the budget, it does include across the board 4% raises. In some instances, actually more than 4%, because we worked with the sheriff and jail and found, when you're trying to keep law enforcement folks and especially down in the jail folks, he's competing with jails, Crawford County, Texas County, Phelps County, on wages on that, as we talked about. And so actually those raises there will amount to more than 4% on that. So we did look at that, and even with those, with our revenue projections, why it still comes out pretty good. I mean, I could look at it, I say, well, if I done everything in the budget myself, some of those things would look a little different, but a budget's a compromise. And whether we're talking about here, whether we're talking about up at Jeff City, everybody has to compromise a little bit and give and take. So,
and again, a budget's a roadmap. It's just to guide you for the next year.
Well, and it's fluid, and sometimes if something happens on the revenue side, I mean, what happened to us back when the Department of Revenue thing hit, and we had $1 million without warning taken from our revenue stream. We done some budget adjustments big time, because it basically wiped out the sheriff's fund totally, but wiped out the sheriff's budget for the operating the sheriff's department was going to be in the hole, and so we had to go in and amend the budget and actually do a big transfer to the sheriff's budget.
Even just like in the past year with the price of diesel went skyrocketing high.
Oh my
you
gosh.
can't anticipate that when you're putting a budget together. So you anticipate usually based upon historical numbers.
Right.
You base it not upon like the last year, but the last 3 to 4 years. You try and put something together with a little bit of an increase, because usually you figure things are going to go up in a little bit of price. Nobody almost anticipated doubling of the price of diesel.
Right.
And so there's no way that in January you can predict what's going to happen in August. There's just no way.
It is difficult. So with that, we generally try to budget the revenue side on the low side and expenses on the high side, and hopefully then we won't have missed either one too badly.
And I want to say this about the commission. And a lot of people say, well, they've got a budget sitting out there. Well, I want to tell you, when the greater blade bids came in and they saw the prices of those were this past year over the previous years and how much they'd gone up, they couldn't order as many blades.
Right.
You can only still live within a budget. You might go over it a little, but they can't just double their budget for greater blades because the cost went up and you need 200 or 150.
Right.
You have to cut back and say, okay, well, we may have to make these last a little longer.
Yeah, it's very real.
Yeah,
We do,
so, they do their best job of trying to conserve the tax dollars of the county. And I tip my cap to them because when they got those bids, the eyes got about 5 inches big.
Right.
They're like, what?
And we watch it and abide by it, and we require all the office holders to abide by their budgets and their budget requests. And but at the same time, and they do a good job. I say we require them to. It doesn't take much oversight for them to. They know what their budget is, what they requested, and they watch it, and they know every month where they're at and what they've asked for, and if they're going over, and if they, you never know when somebody unexpected their computer will go down or whatever, and they have a surprise. They find that we're not hard to work with, and we can make it work because we can find money to go ahead and make it up, but otherwise we pretty well stay within it. So the budget's out there, and again, it is available for the public to take a look at, and that budget hearing will be January 30th at 10 a.m.
I do want to point out, though, if somebody does want that electronically sent, they can send that from the Dane County Clerk's office.
Yep, call the county clerk, 729-4144.
Right, and they can actually email that to you.
Yep. But while we're talking about budget, we already got our first sales tax for this year. And again, now this sales tax doesn't reflect any withholding for the Department of Revenue deal. But just for this year, that sales tax is up, just for general revenue, up 13%. Our January sales tax in 2022 was $91,000 just for general revenue. Same thing for law enforcement sales tax. For January 23, it was $103,600. So it was up 13%. So you see, even with that, if that would hold true through the year, then even if we start seeing Department of Revenue sales tax withholding for that, we'd still be probably ahead of what we were last year, and we've budgeted a reduction from the year before just to try to cover it. So I think we're pretty good. And then the other funds, the road and bridge, the two jail funds, were all up almost 10%. They were 9-something%, as you remember, Stan. So and we watch those pretty closely every month, as you know.
Always good to see them go up.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's heartbreaking to find when they comes in and there's zero. But at any rate, enough of that. We've been down that road. Speaking of roads, road and bridge, not a whole lot going on. We've been pretty lucky weather-wise. Road crews they've been grading, adding material to roads, cleaning out pipes. We've had some rains that have clogged some pipes, but they've been cleaning out culverts and pipes and installing a few. Work did begin on the Cooley Bridge project, and that's what we call a FLAP project, and that's a federal land access program down in Commissioner Mowbray's district, down on County Road 5610, and they're replacing that bridge. Work did begin January the 9th, and they will be progressing on that fairly quickly. And that project is a 75% federal match, so we're going to get a $400,000 bridge. That'll our share of that cost will be roughly 25%, which pretty good deal. And we finally got a good bid in for doing that. Right. We also, though, yesterday did approve another FLAP project that would be scheduled to begin probably in 24. Probably wouldn't happen this year, but you're always a couple of years ahead on these things. So we did approve that project, and that would be to go ahead and extend asphalt from Tanvat down on County Road 6670. That would asphalt that county road from Tanvat on into the back of Montauk State Park along what they call the Bluff Road.
That's needed.
That one actually is 100% federal. That is another federal land access program match, but it would be 100% federal.
They're going to have to widen that road in a couple
up to
places.
800,000. We'll see how this works on the engineering. I mean, there's a lot of things goes into this. And
some of those areas are a little tight.
I know, but tight or what, it'd still be better though if it was asphalt.
I get it.
The way it is, because it's a real problem because of water and drainage and things.
You would think if they're going to go to that extent to fix it, fix it.
There will be a lot of work to done. Whether it can be done for $800,000 is the big question, because when we get into where we got to start ponying up a lot of cash dollars, there's not a lot of room in road and bridge for extra dollars coming out. And as we said, this is the end of ARPA now, so you don't have that sitting there, and then there'll be some of this LATCF, but we need to go ahead when we get done with, and again, this work on the courthouse is starting. People are going to be seeing more work being done all the time. But we also got work we need to do in the courthouse. If we could, we just got some other things coming up that we need to, that will, everything cost, and we'll be doing. So at any rate, but that's where we're at on that. And other than that, Wednesday I did attend the County Commission Association of Missouri Board meeting, and in Jefferson City. And we worked on completing work on our commissioners training that will be coming up in March.
Next month.
Next month, can't believe
Really?
it. Well, the end of, first.
Yeah,
It's
end
March
of
1st,
February,
2nd, and
right?
3rd. March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd is
Oh,
the
really?
dates for commission
Moved
training
it all
this
the
year.
way back to March.
We
now.
moved the location, we moved the time. We moved it up to March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Hopefully that'll eliminate weather concerns. Several years ago, the commission training ended up being canceled because of a blizzard that hit
Oh, I know.
Jefferson City.
But March 1st is
So,
the opening of trout season.
I know, this is killing me. I know. Unofficial
Isn't that a
unofficial first day of
national holiday?
spring. Should be. Ron, it ought to at least be a state holiday.
That's right.
First day of spring, March 1st. March 1st. Yeah, I know.
Employees would be mad at me if
No,
if you got me on that.
I was only kidding. I'm the same way. I can't believe.
Votes if I have to talk about that.
I can't believe every time that there's another holiday that comes up. It's going to be also whatever. Anyway, but we did work on that, and we did work on legislative issues that CCAM is going to be looking at, underfunded mandates and other things like that. So we'll be coming up to Jeff City and talking about some of those things. And matter of fact, some of us will probably be up there this Wednesday, if depending on when the baby comes.
Yeah,
I'll probably be up there Wednesday. I might be up there Tuesday. MRPC's legislative day is Tuesday afternoon. And I think they may have hopefully they talked to you about setting up a time that you could meet with the Regional Planning Commission.
They've got two time frames
That's
there
what I
that I
thought,
was
two
looking
different-
at that Bruce Sassman set that up. So yeah, I know about that. So
Yep.
I plan on attending at least one of those.
Yep.
Try to get back in the swing of that and whatnot.
Yeah, Regional Planning Commission usually always goes up and talks about legislative issues that our regional planning group has identified, and then the County Commission Association. I'm on that board and committee. That a group of us will be coming up probably then Wednesday to talk about some specific issues the Commission Association is looking at, and our lobbyist Ginger Steinmetz, Ginger, she works for the Commission Association and will be helping. I think we got a couple of meetings maybe with Senator Eschlinger and Senator Bean. I think she was
Good
arranging.
senators.
Yeah, good folks. So, so they're down here south Missouri. So anyway, we'll be going up and do that, and talking about jail reimbursement. That's always a.
Yeah. And if you have any concerns, be sure to check with your local presiding commissioners first, and then you can contact me.
That'd be fine.
No,
Oh,
just
yeah.
feel free to contact my office at any time.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good about getting back to people or getting you to who you need to talk to.
Yeah. Your new LA name? What's?
It's Sarah Williams.
Okay, Sarah. I hadn't called up there yet, so anyway, good deal. So
very
anyway,
good.
that pretty well catches my deal up.
You did have to put out bids for an auditor.
We did have put out bids for a federal audit. Anytime you take in, I think it's over $750,000 of federal dollars in a year, we have to put out and get advertise and get an audit.
And I'd like to see
Federal
that
audit.
change because some of that's pass-through money, is the way I understand it. It's
It
already
is.
dedicated
It is.
money.
It
It's
is.
already there.
It's our
so
national
some of it would
forest
save
money.
several tens of thousands of dollars from several of the prior, counties that I had. And I don't know why it's a designated money. If 500,000 of it's designated money, you really don't meet your $750,000 threshold. I'd like to see that change.
I'm not sure it's a state deal though. If it's
It
a
is
federal,
not, but I
federal
still would
deal,
like to see the federal government
can-
talk to Jason Smith about that, and I got Bernsketter now as well. Is that right? In Crawford County. So I mean, now I've got two representatives to talk to about that. So
because that'll be $12,000 or $15,000 that'll cost.
every year, every 3 years.
Well, any year you take in over
anytime.
750,000,
Any
then
year.
you're on the hook. You got to do it again.
I-
We just
I-
had one done last year, and I mean, to
I don't
me,
know.
if you've had a clean one that's totally clean, I mean, ours are always squeaky clean to a fault almost, and if you had it, and it's just nothing really any different than what you've had, then at least every 3 years maybe would.
But
something,
like the
something.
pass-through money, which people might not understand, it's designated money that the county gets that they have to send to certain places.
Mm-hmm.
That counts as a 700. It's not extra stuff that they get every other year. So I
Right.
can
The
understand if
total-
you get extra money this year, we want to make sure you spend it a certain way. But
Sure.
if it's designated 400,000 to the schools,
Right.
And-
That forced
that
money.
counts for, yeah.
That forced money is a big chunk of money that counts against us on this
That's what I
750,000.
mean.
But most of that money goes to the schools and things.
Already
And we don't even-
designated to go to somewhere, but they count that for the 750,000. That should be, the pass-through money should not count for the 750, because, if you get $300,000, they want to know where it goes to, and I understand an audit. But it doesn't meet the threshold really, because most of it is pass-through
It's
money.
already been designated.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not going
At least if
anywhere.
it was just every 3 years, unless there was findings.
Oh,
pretty sure.
I'm
If
with
there
you.
was findings,
That's
I'd say the
something that
next
I'll
year.
walk and talk to. I know that's a policy that the Forest Service has done, and
Maybe the chairman of the Federal U.S. Ways and Means Committee could work on
I'm
it.
sure
we only go through
I'm
that
sure
one.
he's got a lot of requests already. Right.
I'm sure,
Sure.
too. But which, by the way, Jason Smith did get chairmanship of the Congressman Jason Smith get chairmanship of the in Congress of the Ways and Means Committee, and that's huge.
And
that's
just
a
think
great
he's
deal.
somebody from Dent County that's worked his way up through the legislature
Yep.
to our Congress, and now he's up fourth or fifth in the United
yeah.
States government. Where that position is a very good position.
Just think where he started out.
Yeah.
No, he actually, he actually got interested in politics when he won the inter-county essay contest and went to D.C.
No way.
That's it. And then he came back after that, and then he said, that made him want to run for school board, which is the only election he's ever lost.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that
He
part.
lost.
Yeah, he
I didn't know that part.
Yeah, he lost.
Hey, but he kept going, and look where
Well,
he's
he
at
did.
now.
I know. That's what I'm saying. But he had a goal after he went up there. He said, I think I know what I want to do. And he was an FFA, and he was the FFA president, and he did great in public speaking. He had a plan.
He's very dedicated to it, and so it's
Give him
it's
credit.
He literally eats, sleeps, and drinks it.
Well, he does.
Yep.
He does.
Yep.
But
Committed.
he's still an FFA, Salem FFA chapter member.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Right.
There you go.
So anyway, we'll be back.
All right, very good. As always, want to thank Darrell for having this program, even though he's not expecting, but his family's expecting. And so we thank you for coming in, not knowing when that might happen. Thank you for bringing Ron in. Ron, thank you for giving us the time and keeping us up to date on what's going on. We really do appreciate that very much.
Thank
the
you, Ron.
program is paid for by Darrell. It's not free. It's not paid for. It's not in the budget. I can tell you that.
Nope.
Not that budget. It might be in Darrell's budget.
You'll
but
see
it's
it in
not
my
that
checkbook.
budget. But we do.
Daryl's check.
Well, okay, but we want to let everybody know this program is paid for. It's not a free program, and it is paid for by Darrell personally, not by tax dollars or any county funds whatsoever. And we do thank you for doing this and keeping the public informed. A long program today, but a very informative program today.
We plowed a lot of ground, didn't we?
Yeah, we sure
I do.
did.
But I do appreciate the opportunity, Stan, and we will be back here Friday morning, February the 3rd. God willing, and the creeks don't rise, as they say. But until we're back here, I do hope every one of you out there will be safe, happy, healthy, and God bless each and every one. And we leave you